дорожки у прохожих на виду. К сожалению, день рождения только раз в году. К сожалению, день рождения только раз в году.
Eine Schlüsselerfahrung war für mich,
The critical moment for me was when I went out with the children to the local shopping centre. We were about to go up the stairs to the first floor when I suddenly saw a man come up and kick one of the children, just like a football, down the staircase. I was dumbfounded at the sight. The man approached me and, having recognized me, apologized. I continued on my way with the children, but that was the moment I realized that the children here are all regarded as criminals. Everybody is afraid of them. And the saddest thing of all is that nobody needs them.
Das ist die schlimmste Erfahrung.
It was during the second year of my stay here that these street children began coming to ask me whether I did not have some spare space where they could stay the night, or whether I could not give them some warm clothing. I remember that day very well. I was ill at the time and couldn't do anything for them. So I asked one of the members of the community to take them to Aunt Lenny's apartment and stay with them overnight. He did so and reported back saying, "Never again." It was then that I thought that if they came and asked again, though it would not be easy, I would go and spend the night with them, because I could not refuse them.
Aber die kamen wieder, kurze Zeit später.
And indeed, in a very short time, the children did come again, and I moved in with them, and soon enough there were 16, straight off the streets. Terrible things happened, fights every day, blood splattered over the walls and floor. After a couple of days I began to think about what I should do. I could clearly not live with them for good. I went to the police station, where they asked me for the children's names. They knew all of them, and it turned out they were all common criminals. Are you not afraid of sleeping with them under one roof? After all, they could murder you. The conversation was quite frightening. I answered that I knew and understood that they might kill me.
Ich verstehe schon, dass die mich umbringen können.
The policeman continued to recount how these children attacked people and how they tried to eke out an existence from what they managed to steal, and that they were only waiting for them to turn 14 and to put them behind bars. I thought to myself that under the circumstances I had nothing to lose. If they were condemned to a jail existence, my looking after them could do no harm. They later told me quite directly that to begin with they had no intention of staying. As it happened, it never even crossed my mind they would stay with us, even after the many days I spent with them. Indeed, I was rather concerned at what would happen to them once I managed to finally get rid of them. That is, until they clearly stated that they wanted to stay.
He seemed strange to begin with. My girlfriends introduced him to me when I was 13 years old. They were already staying with Father Erich. I had never seen a priest before. I joined Father Erich's group in the first apartment on Eternal Flame Street. I can't remember how many of us were there, but I think about 16 people. We slept on the floor. That was better than walking, any time. Better to sleep somewhere warm and clean. Drinking bouts were the norm in my home. My mother would have guests, so I had already been living away from home for about a month. We used to sit around in attics, sometimes at my girlfriend's place. We would roam the streets at night and never go home.
The first thing we did was to find out how they had come to live on the streets and why they had turned up on our doorstep. In 90% of cases, we would send them back home because the children turned out to be guilty rather than the parents. In the remaining cases, the parents were clearly guilty and so responsible for their children leaving home. Homes without electricity or food or water, and all because the parents are alcoholics. Parents that drink do not pay taxes, spend everything on drink, so that there is nothing left to buy food. Parents, totally uncaring about their children's future, leave them no other choice but to go out on the streets. In such cases, the choice was obvious and we had to take them in. But if, for example, the children began to sniff glue, it has to be said that they all did it, drink, smoke, or engage in any other such bad habits. If they went out on the streets in spite of the good living conditions at home, we would endeavour to send them back to their parents.
Сейчас колодец закрыт, потому что люди, они отрабатываются на улице.
The canal is now closed because people are out earning money on the streets. They're out all day stealing scrap metal somewhere, or robbing passers-by, or looking for drunks. This is the warmest canal, and so surviving the winter down here is easy. Children prepared to live anywhere live in such canals, as well as in blocks, on concrete, on staircases. They quite simply lie down in the stairwell or on doormats, cover themselves with a jacket, and that's that. And that's how they spend their time until 5 in the morning, when, with the first movement of people and vehicles, they go out and beat these people up and rob them of all their belongings, everything. Among them are 5- and 6-year-olds who specialize as pickpockets.
Они щипают по карманам.
We slept in the apartment Aunt Lenny left us. When she died, relatives took everything, except for the carpet on the floor in the big room that offered some protection from the cold. At the beginning, I brought a few boxes of woolen blankets, which we had received from Germany as humanitarian aid. Just imagine 16 difficult children lying next to each other in a row like sardines, with me in their midst, trying to be severe. I declared assertively, "Now we sleep, and if anybody says a word, out he goes." Reacting immediately helped me achieve success in getting them to sleep quietly and soundly until the morning. In the morning they would tell me, "Now we have to go to work." To begin with, I didn't know what they meant by work, so I asked, "Where?" They answered, "To the market." I thought to myself that they had probably found work as loaders or something, whilst they quite simply stole.
Später haben wir das natürlich rausbekommen. Ich habe gesagt,
When I found out, I told them that those who wanted to live here would have to start a new life, meaning no glue sniffing or drinking of alcohol, and that they would have to go to school.
sie müssen in die Schule gehen. Das war
For these young people, of whom many had last crossed a school threshold a year or two ago, this was a great day.
Wir haben in der Badewanne
We washed their clothes by hand in a bathtub, following which they would go to their first lesson in a long time, clean and sweet-smelling,
aber das war irgendwo verbunden
a source of great pride and real joy for them.
Freude, die die gezeigt haben. Und wir haben ja da auch
I remember how we used to cook together.
mich erinnern, wie
We
wir
would
alle
sit on the floor amongst the many pots and pans, peeling potatoes and onions to make a soup.
Suppe gekocht haben und so weiter.
And so we lived, essentially a very simple life.
Einfachsten Verhältnissen.
For example, for many months we had no beds.
Dass keine Betten da waren.
Это залишайте в пам'ять обо мне.
Ich habe von dem
The moment parishioners found out about my involvement, that I was looking after the children, their reaction was uniquely negative. Everybody was against, saying, "You mustn't do this, you must not. You shouldn't take on such a responsibility on your shoulders." The resistance was so great that I felt totally isolated. I just didn't know what to do. I could not even ask, "Who will help me?" Shortly afterwards, I fell very ill. I had a temperature of nearly 40 degrees. I had to lie in bed all day and couldn't go to the children for the night. Tamara, who works with us to this day, offered to spend the night with them. But then a neighbor phoned me in the middle of the night and said he would call the police if I did not come immediately. I told him that I had a fever and was bedbound. He replied that in that case the police would come and take all the children away. So I got into my car and went. The neighbor showed me that one of the boys had knocked one of Tamara's teeth
Der
out.
Junge hat gerade der Tamara einen Zahn ausgeschlagen.
В этой квартире мы живем уже вот третий год.
We have lived in this apartment for 3 years. There are 7 boys with me. We are what we call here a surrogate family, and I am a surrogate parent. Artyom was the first child we took into family care with Father Erich. He's an orphan. His parents were both murdered at the same time, and that is why he found himself, so to speak, on the street. I took him in. The second child was Seryoja. He was already in a surrogate family, but they bullied him, and that is why he ran away. Little Seryoja joined us later on, followed by Igor, also from an orphanage. All the children were difficult. They were all addicts. Of course, the beginnings were difficult. We had to start everything from scratch, from a spoon, a fork, and it was only thanks to our German friends and their selfless help that we were able to provide for these children.
Их бескорыстной помощи мы могли содержать этих детей.
На улице дождик, на улице слякоть, а им всё равно.
Und am Anfang war es noch
At the beginning, there were problems with the education department. Officials were worried that I might try to exploit the children in some way, tie them emotionally, until such time when they finally admitted that, yes, no one can help these children, and thank God that you look after them now. I often think about our work with the children. If they can just as easily be taken care of in an orphanage, then we should not be doing this, and they should live there, because our job is not about doing something that is already done by somebody else. Nevertheless, the more I tried to move out of this work, the more clearly I could see how very necessary it was. I was incessantly inundated with calls from orphanages. We have such and such a girl who continually runs away. We don't know what to do with her. We are just not managing. Could you not look after her and perhaps take her in? Today, we in fact take in more children from orphanages than from off the streets.
Als von den Kinderheimen.
И будем мы рядом с тобою всегда.
Они хотят дом.
They want to have a home, to have a mother. You have no idea what a joy it is for them to be able to say, I'm going home. Not to the bazaar, as they call the orphanage. In other words, a place with too many people. They are going home. For them, this is home. This is, how can I put it? Their family.
Меня зовут опять Саша. Мне 8 лет.
My name is Sasha. I'm 8 years old, nearly 9.
Занимаюсь там.
I go to the Lennon Arts Center. I attend classes, a choir, art lessons, as well as educational game sessions.
Я был сначала
I was in Buratin,
в Буратине,
in orphanage number 2.
номер 2.
I was later transferred to orphanage number 1. And that's where I met Mother.
Нравится. Мне больше всех мама нравится.
Mother is what I like best. It's not the apartment, but Mother. Because she is pretty, good, wise. She works as a vet. She heals animals.
Умная. Она у нас
And because she knows everything.
ветеринарным врачом. Зверей лечит. И все потому что знает. Где мама, там и она. Где мама, там и я.
Und jetzt haben wir eben schon wieder neue Generation von Kindern.
We presently have a new generation of children living here. The youngest is 7 years old, and the eldest boy is 22.
Und die ersten sind
Of the first group, apart from 2, they all lead their own lives.
in ihrem Leben.
In the meantime, and though we essentially did not plan it, we've managed to acquire a third and bigger apartment. I visit all 3 apartments every evening, and during these evenings we always pray and talk. It all usually lasts about 2 hours. I only don't visit in absolutely exceptional circumstances, for example when I get back from Krasnovyshevsk after 11 at night, or when I'm ill, like now, when I have a fever.
Gut. Also, помолимся, как обычно, но постараемся красиво, да? Во имя Отца и Сына и Святого Духа. Аминь. Отче наш, сущий на небесах. Für mich war von Anfang an klar, ich darf nicht zu sehr in der Vergangenheit dieser Kinder.
For me, it was clear from the start that I could not become too deeply involved with the children's past, because the consequences would cause pain. That is why, to this day, I'm always very discreet. What these people need is for somebody to show interest, for somebody to believe in them. For example, that they will succeed once they're back at school. Engaging with the children, and this must be clearly stated, must be unconditional. I simply want to give these children an opportunity to feel that there is a God who created them and who loves them as they are. Without that image, nothing would work out. Without that religious input. There is a need for such great patience that I always think to myself, how glad I am that God chose to begin this adventure with me. He opened my eyes on His most wonderful quality, that of patience with us, His people, and that means that He continually gives us a new chance.
Und was das eigentlich bedeutet, dass uns immer wieder eine Chance gibt.
He wasn't afraid of them. He wasn't afraid of sleeping with them, of living in the same apartment. He believed in them, and they felt it and responded in kind. Do you know what they tell him? Dad, you are the best in the world. We love you, Dad. We are proud of you, Dad. Thank you for being our dad. That says a lot about his relationship with the children, and the children, feeling his concern, change in front of our very eyes. Ever since they've lived here, there has been no trouble or complaints from either school or the police. The boys carry out all their duties, attend interest groups. Some have proved exceptional painters. In all, I think that our family is very lucky and that the children feel good here.
Да благословит и укрепит тебя всемогущий Бог, Отец и Сын и Дух Святой. Аминь.
Благословит и укрепит тебя всемогущий Бог, Отец, Сын и Дух Святой. Аминь.
Аминь.
У меня нехорошие родители.
I have bad parents. They most certainly don't know my character. Mother abandoned me. She clearly didn't get on with me. And that's that. She doesn't want to know me. Had I remained in the orphanage, I would most probably be roaming the streets at night and be up to no good. Whereas in this apartment, things are far easier. They have a different attitude towards me. At first, I popped into the church on the odd occasion and came a couple of times out of curiosity. I didn't pray at all. But then during Mass, I heard what Fr Erich had to say about sin, and I decided to go to confession. And that was that. I've changed somewhat since then. God gave me, firstly, He gave me life. He gives me joy and patience. With His help, I have become a better student. I've stopped doing bad things. I have, as if, stopped taking pleasure from harming people. And to add to all that, my dreams have come true. That once, after a month, I dreamed of going to Moscow. And I went, thanks to Fr Erich.
Благодаря отцу Эриху.
Всем привет! Спокойной ночи.
Спокойной ночи. Семье, да. Хорошо. Wir haben
Essentially, in matters religious, we have succeeded in reaching all the children. I never achieved anything through coercion. The first children saw how I prayed, and they wanted to learn how. They wholeheartedly asked me to teach them. It is difficult to imagine how eager they were to be christened, how they pressured me, in fact forced me to begin the preparatory process in order to receive this sacrament. The first baptism. Now what a celebration that was. I will never forget it for as long as I live.
Diese erste Tauffeier werde ich nie im Leben vergessen. Also, Jonuschka, dabei. Wir beten miteinander am Abend.
We pray together, and it must be said that the majority of children take it all very seriously. I know from their confessions how deeply the conversion of some of them went, and how they are presently looking for the right way forward. Success is, of course, not always guaranteed. Working with such children, I sometimes repeat this, has nothing to do with romanticism. Those who visit us can see for themselves how beautifully they pray, how they embrace each other during the sign of peace. It looks beautiful. However, working with these children, dealing with their many problems and everything else that might come out in the process, is usually a very much bitterer route. One has to take a person firmly by the hand and show them the right way. Sometimes things need to be said very directly and sternly, because spiritual fatherhood, to be effective, needs unambiguous and clear leadership, and especially so with young people. Later, they are always grateful, and one doesn't lose them.
I would like to have both parents and a strict father to bring me up and to give me a good slap for every bad mark. I have a dream, to be able to go back in time, for me to be a little more intelligent, and then perhaps I might have succeeded in putting my parents on their feet. In effect, I would have brought them up. They would have stopped drinking and would have learned to appreciate me for what I was and am, capable of achieving in life, and so would not have abandoned me. My biggest dream? To buy a very, very big plot of land and to build a very, very big house on it for children, and to live in it with them. Just like Fr Erich.